In 1987, a retired steelworker named Harold Okafor lived on $19 a week for groceries in Gary, Indiana, making one pot on Sunday and living off it for 6 days straight. That's meal number 7 on this list, a dish that traces back to wartime Japan. In 1994, a widow in Bakersfield stretched $23 across 10 days by boiling down bones nobody else wanted. That's number 6, another meal born in wartime Japan, and still being made, decades later, by people with nothing to waste. These are 10 forgotten poor man one-pot meals that survived wartime Japan. Recipes born out of real scarcity that outlived the war itself and kept feeding people who had nothing left to lose. Hit that subscribe button. Let's count down the 10 forgotten poor man one-pot meals that survived wartime Japan. 10. Watery udon vegetable pot. In post-war Tokyo, a bundle of dried udon cost about 11 yen, a price a family could still spare if nothing else broke that week. Mothers made it stretch across 5 people by adding water each night until the noodles were more memory of noodles than noodles themselves. The dish came together the same simple way every time: cabbage leaves, carrot ends, a splash of soy, whatever broth had survived from the night before, all dropped into boiling water and left to go soft, then eaten straight from the pot it cooked in. It smelled like a warm room in a cold house, which some nights was the whole point. It wasn't a meal so much as proof the family was still eating together. 9. Wild mushroom and rice pot. In the winter of 1946, a man in rural Nagano built this pot over an open flame after his household's charcoal ran out. Rice was running only a few cents a sack that year, not that it mattered much. He didn't have the money for a sack, only for what the hills would still give him for free. He'd wash the mushrooms with his hands, tear rather than cut them, and let them settle into the rice as it steamed, until the whole pot smelled like wet earth and wood smoke and tasted like the forest had agreed to feed him one more time. What he knew, where to look, and when, became the only inheritance some families had left to pass down. 8. A rationed pork scrap hotpot. By 1946, with husbands not yet home and neighbors still missing, a lot of women in Osaka were cooking for tables that used to be fuller. This was one of the pots that filled the gap. Pork trimmings, cabbage, whatever root vegetables hadn't spoiled, a spoon of miso if there was any to spare. The fat got rendered slow, low heat before everything else went in on top of it, and the smell filled the house before the first bite ever happened. A butcher's leftover scraps, the parts no one paid for, cost about 3 cents a pound that year, cheap enough that a patient family could stretch them across a week. It was the smell of meat in a house that otherwise smelled like nothing at all. 7. Pumpkin and barley stew. This is the pot Harold Okafor, the steelworker from the start of this video, made every Sunday in Gary, Indiana, and stretched across 6 days on $19 a week. The squash came bruised from the discount bin, 19 cents a pound in 1987, cut rough with the skin still on and left to break down into the barley until the whole pot turned the color of late afternoon. Water, salt, sometimes a bone if one was in the house. Nothing more than that. He ate it every night that October and never once called it hardship. He called it Tuesday. 6. Fishbone and seaweed broth pot. The widow from the start of this video, the one in Bakersfield stretching $23 across 10 days, built this from a single soup bone and whatever seaweed was left in the cupboard. A bone from the discount rack ran about 40 cents in 1994, and she made it stretch by adding water until the broth barely resembled broth at all. Fish bones, dried seaweed, a little salt, boiled until the water turned cloudy and rich, strained if there was patience for it, left alone if there wasn't. It tasted like the ocean apologizing for taking so much. The good part of an animal, she used to say, is not always the part people pay for. 5. Soybean and daikon stew. In rural Japan, during the lean years, a cup of dried soybeans cost about 4 cents and got treated like currency more than food. Traded, stretched, rationed out by the handful. The beans went into the pot first, left to soften slow, sometimes all afternoon, with the daikon added only near the end so it kept a little firmness. Water and a splash of soy sauce, if there was any left, was all it ever needed. It tasted like patience made edible, and a single pot could carry a family 2 days if no one asked for seconds. Nobody ever did. 4. Miso-based vegetable hotpot. A small tub of miso ran about 6 sen in the 1940s and could season a dozen meals across a dozen weeks, which is probably why this pot got passed down mother to daughter more than almost anything else on this list. The trick was dissolving the miso into hot water off the heat, before it ever touched the flame, so it never turned bitter. Only then did the vegetables go in, whatever was in the house. Tofu too, if there was any, all left to simmer low until the kitchen smelled like something being taken care of. It meant a family could still taste like a family, even on the nights. There was nothing left to add to the pot. 3. Sweet potato and millet pot. A sharecropper's daughter in the American South never owned a real stove, only a fire pit behind the house, and she built this from whatever the harvest left behind. The good potatoes went to market, and the small ones, worth maybe 2 cents a pound if anyone had bought them at all, stayed home with her. She cut them small so they'd cook through with the millet, just water and a little salt besides, and let the whole pot sit until it thickened on its own. It tasted like something dug up and grateful for it. She never called it a recipe. She called it what there was. 2. Nabe with forage greens and tofu scraps. The hardest part of cooking alone isn't usually the cooking. It's setting a pot down at a table built for more people than are left. Tofu shops in wartime Kyoto sold or gave away their scraps for less than a sen a handful, and a widow could build a week of dinners from what a shop would have thrown out. She washed the greens hard, tore them by hand, and let them wilt into the pot alongside whatever tofu didn't sell whole. Just water, a little salt or soy, nothing more. It tasted like green things fighting to still be green. It asked almost nothing of her and gave back the 1 hour of the day that still felt like hers. 1. Zosui rice and vegetable stew. Japanese families returned to this one again and again in the years after the war, because it used what nothing else would. The last of the rice, whatever vegetables were still in the house, water, a little soy or miso if there was any. You'd break the rice apart in the pot as it warmed and let it soak up the broth until it turned soft and thick, almost like porridge, until it tasted like the end of a hard week deciding to be gentle with you. A bowl cost less than a single sen to make. It asked almost nothing of anyone and gave back almost everything anyway. Pick one, just one, from this whole list and make it this week. Sit at the table, not the couch. Set an actual place and eat it slow. None of this was ever about a tight budget or a convenient shortcut. It was about people choosing on an ordinary hard day to feed themselves anyway, in a world that always makes it easier to stop trying. Tell me in the comments, the zosui or the miso hot pot, which one you're making first. Not nutrition, not money, dignity. That's the last word.